Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our Work at Home with Work Avenue webinar. My name is not Work Avenue. My name is Hannah Mindell, and I am one of the business advisors here at Work Avenue. If you look on the top of your screen, probably, hopefully, because we were all here first, you should see Joanna Sadie, who is waving. She is the head of business team. If you look around, you might see Debbie Sheldon as well, who is our CEO. So just as a reminder to you that Work Avenue are here, we may not be physically able to be together, but we are virtually able to be together. And we are running these webinars on a weekly basis. So we take 1 week and the employment team take another week, and we're here to help give you useful information when you've got time to do so. And this is all the sorts of programs that we would be running usually physically in our space, but we are unable to do it now. So we have tried to ensure that you still have access to the Work Avenue support, even though we can't all be together. Before we start, I just wanted to ask anybody who has signed in because they have seen about these webinars on our LinkedIn posts or our social media posts, if you could just drop me as the host a private message with your email address, I'll be able to make sure that we can sign you up for future Work Avenue events so you don't miss out. If you've got an email from us already, you don't have to send me your email. We've already got your details. So I am going to, thankfully for most people, not talk very much today, and I'm going to hand you over to our creative experts. Thanks so much, Ariella, Richard and Marc, for joining us. The only thing I need to do is share my screen a couple of times, so hopefully that will work. But first, my favourite, Ariella, who didn't send me anything to share on my screen. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, give you some top tips, and then we'll open the floor up to questions. So, Ariella, do you want to take it away?
Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Ariella Aghai, and I am a branding expert. So people usually come to me when they are at the start of a business idea, and they normally look for a graphic designer to start with the logo and so on and so forth. So when I initially meet with a person, the first thing I would like to know is if they understand their own business model as well as they are portraying it to me. So do they know their audience? Do you know your audience? Do you know what sort of logo you'd like to portray to the public? Do you know what target market you're aiming at? Normally when they come to me with an idea, it's important to differentiate the difference between knowing what you like as the CEO of your own company and knowing what your audience would like to look at. And that's one of the first tips I'd like to share with you today. You may have a taste for something rustic, or you have an idea in mind, but if you have a certain target market, it's important to understand who they are, where they shop, what they do, what sort of lifestyles they have, in order to portray a logo that will entice them to your product. So that's the first tip I'd like to share with you today. The second tip is that a lot of people miss today is that graphic design actually does have a fashion. Just like you can buy a pair of trousers and go out of fashion next season. You do get that with graphic design, as do you get with web design, which people don't understand today. And one of the first things I'd like to share with you is that I come across people who are in the process of rebranding. And their first question is, oh, I don't want to change too much. I'm afraid my audience will forget who we are. We'll lose our identity or something like that. Well, we live in the 21st century. It's very hard to lose any customer. You've got them on an app, you've got them on LinkedIn, you've even got their WhatsApp number. It's very hard to lose a customer along the way. And if anything, if you update your logo and make it more fashionable and with what's trending, you're actually telling your customer, look, I'm in line with how the world is progressing. I'm turning with the world. I'm not standing still. And in that respect, you actually gain a sort of customer confidence, because you're telling the audience, look, I understand which direction the world is going in, and I'm going with it. So that's the idea of graphic design and the fashion of graphic design. Another idea I'd like to share with you today is that if you know your product and service, and if you know what sort of audience you're aiming at, you'll naturally know what sort of price points you'd like your product or service to be at, and your logo would have to portray that. So for instance, if you're going to open a company for being lawyers, the first thing people would think about for a logo for a company for lawyers, you choose a serif font, something quite respectable, something quite trustworthy. I'd like to highlight the word trustworthy, but with that comes the idea that, oh, these lawyers are going to be too expensive, I'm not going to afford it. And it's a very fine line between designing a logo that's going to make people want to trust you just by looking at the logo, and then having people think straight away, oh, but I can't afford that. So sometimes you might want to create a logo that on purpose is going to look slightly cheaper, but it's going to tell everyone I'm affordable, which is something that today is quite an important point that you like to tell your audience. So there's a fine line between mixing the fonts you use and the colors you use, and it can kind of play with both ideas. And the last idea I'd like to share with you today is the difference between creating a logo and a brand for a product or a service, because that's going to reflect all the colors that you use, the language that you use, and all sorts of things. It's all going to ripple along. So if you're creating a service, the types of colors you're going to want to use might be kind of soft colors, maybe pastels, depends on if it's going to be pastels. You want to try to tell people through the logo, through the brand, through the color scheme, through the language, there is ease of communication because you're selling a service. That means you're selling trust. That means you're selling reliability. You're selling a human being behind a screen. You're not selling robotic communication, which people don't want to do. So that all comes across in your brand and the sorts of colors you use and the sorts of language you use and the sorts of fonts you use. If you're selling a product, you want people to sort of touch what you're selling just by looking at it. So if you're selling fast food, if you're opening a fast food business, you want to use colors that you can sort of taste, sort of feel. You're going to want the logo to look sort of 3D. Like you can touch it almost. The service is going to look slightly different. So there's all sorts of different aspects you're going to want to build with that. Another tip I'd like to share with you today, and my last one, is if you know, and it's going back to my first point about the audience and knowing who your audience are, is if you know what sort of advertising you're doing and what sort of mediums, what sort of advertising channel you're going to be going down, you're going to want to ensure that your brand and your logo and all of that is going to sit alongside your competitors, and the colors you're going to be using are going to be printed correctly. If you're going to be mainly online, you're going to want to make sure that your RGB colors are perfect rather than CMYK, and it's going to show up perfectly on all those online mediums that you're using. So those are my 5 top tips today, although I've given you 6. I'm happy to answer any of your questions, but thank you for listening. Thanks,
Ariella. Right. Before we move on to questions, let's hear from all of our experts. So Richard, let's go. This is me. I've got to share my screen now. So if it all goes wrong, it's on me, not on Richard. Let's go. Can everybody see that?
That seems to be working. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Richard Cohn, and for the last 14 years, I've been helping small businesses to find the right words to persuade their customers to say yes. My company is Scribbles Media, and I'm a copywriter and content strategist. I write copy and content for my clients' websites, brochures, blogs, tenders, proposals, and marketing. Essentially, any medium where they look to upsell, cross-sell, resell, or just sell to any audience. So as you can see on the slide there that's been shared on your screen, I've got 5 very, very simple tips to share with you today. The first one is fairly obvious. You'll have heard it from everyone before. It's stand out from the crowd. But far too many clients that I come across spend a lot of time, especially in established businesses, spend a lot of time trying to look like everybody else. And it's my job to make them stand out through the words that I use. Serial entrepreneur and marketing guru Seth Godin said, in a crowded marketplace, fitting in is failure. To stand out is, if only just a little, is vital for any business's success. So number 2 is sell the benefit, not the service. Another example here, US businessman and author Peter Zollinger is quoted as saying, in our factory we make lipstick, in our advertising we sell hope. People don't want to hear what it is you do. They want to know how what you do benefits them. Don't sell the lipstick, sell the guy the lipstick will attract. The confidence you'll feel when wearing the lipstick, and the indelible memories created in the photos that you look so amazing in. And I seem to have lost my screen. Hang on. There we are. Number 3 is to give your brand personality. Now, this is something that Ariella mentioned actually in something she said. She said that you need to be selling the human being behind your business. And that's absolutely right. To adapt 80s band collaboration, Bananarama and Funboy 3, it's not what it is, it's not what you say, it's the way that you say it, and that's what gets results. People buy from people they like and trust. So use the words on your website and in your marketing to convey a brand personality that your audience is going to engage with, because part of standing out is in the personality that you give your copy through all of your mediums. Number 4 is write for your audience, not for your peers. Once again, it's another thing that I see all the time is company owners writing in jargon, writing in terms that only they and their peers would understand. It's all about understanding the customer before you speak, before you start writing for them. What motivates them, what their expectations of you are, what their worries and desires are. A lot of this I'm sure Ariella does, and I know that Marc does in sort of brand discovery, about understanding the customer fully before we start actually working. And it's only when you understand them that you understand the languages and the tones and the messages you can use in order to sell to them effectively. And finally, it's all about the micro commitments. If you can break down a big decision into smaller, more tangible, more manageable commitments, it's far easier to get somebody to say yes. A strategic copywriter should be able to develop that step-by-step, the tiny little step-by-steps of commitment, where you get their permission to read on a little bit further, and a little bit further before they pick up the telephone to you. It's not about taking the big leap, because that's quite difficult. But if you can actually get them to do little bits along the way, then you can actually persuade them to make a quite large commitments in the end, because you have earned their trust. And those are my 5 tips for today.
Thank you. Right. I now need to share Marc. Let's go. Hang on, excuse me. Right. So can we see that?
You can start on that, leave it on that page, it's fine. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marc, from MLA Web Designs. I've had my business for about 7 years, and what we do is web design and web development. I'm going to apologize to start with. My number 1 point is aesthetics, and so I'm going to apologize for my aesthetics. If I'm looking a bit wild at the moment, the lockdown hasn't been so kind to me. But the 5 key points I want to talk about to create an effective website is: number 1, aesthetics; number 2, the flow of the website; Number 3, the structure of pages for SEO. And for anyone who doesn't understand that, that's search engine optimization, and that's how that's what brings organic traffic to your website. Number 4 is the call to actions on your website, and number 5 is the actual development of your website. So aesthetics is the look and feel of your website, and this is how you represent your company online. This gives visitors an impression when they land on your website. They will judge your business immediately and decide whether they will consider to do business with you. The styling of a website really does determine how successful your online business will be, and is probably number 1 most important point. But it also determines what sort of clients you can attract and speaks a message about your business. So number 2 is, I put these screens up, which is just like a dummy design that we've done for someone at the moment, so that you can see it's cut in half because it couldn't fit on the screen. But number 2 is the flow of your website. So a website needs to have a natural flow to it. Firstly, showcasing on the homepage the relevant information that you think your target market would like to hear. So, or like to see, I should say. So you've got a slider at the top. It flows down to your services, a bit about you, testimonials, frequently asked questions, coming down to the blog. Then from that, what you want the website is to direct people and give them the opportunity of finding what they want in the quickest time possible, either from the navigation, the sliders, or the lower elements of your page. So number 3 is the structure of pages for SEO. So the idea is that you want your new website to generate new business and enhance your day-to-day lead generation. And to do this, a website needs to be structured in the right way to be able to work for SEO. All the services need their own individual pages. A blog is really important because it allows you to create yourself as an authority within your niche. So people can come, and if you're a flooring company, you could have a blog on how to remove a wine stain from on your floor. It just creates that authority within your niche. And also, a website needs to be built semantically correct with the correct usage of H1 tags, H2 tags. I understand probably people don't understand what I mean by that, but when you create the structure of your site, it tells Google what a page is about and the descriptions of that page, so that they can see the relevancy of whether they rank you for that or not. Then number 4 is the call to actions. So as a person scrolls through your site, you need regular call to actions to prompt people to take specific action on your website. And when someone is on a specific page or a specific service, you want it to be easy for them to be able to contact you for something that they're interested in and make an inquiry for a specific service. This is really important and makes a big difference to the amount of conversion rate. So your conversion rate is how many people are coming to your website, and how many people, if it's just, you want to find how many people contact you, what's the conversion rate from the number of traffic to the number of leads that you get. And then the final point is the actual development. And I think this is the most overlooked and disregarded part when someone gets a website. For me as a geek, this is something that makes really such a difference. And how easy is it for you as a client to be able to edit and manage the site yourself from the back end? And how simply the back end is developed for you really determines the quality and build itself. And I appreciate that most people don't understand this part and how to be able to judge that. But this really showcases whether you've really got value for your money. Has a site been built as a bespoke theme, or has someone just configured a template online? Because the difference is chalk and cheese. And that's my 5 points.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so so thanks so much, guys, for your top tips. We can now open it up for questions. So you can either type your question in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can put a reaction and put your hand up. although I don't know how I'd see that. I'm sure it's quite obvious when people do it. Let's open it up. I know, Joe, you had some questions that we often ask our creative suppliers that you wanted to ask.
Yeah, so I obviously deal with a lot of businesses on a regular basis, or both Hannah and I do. And they, you know, we talk to them about kind of the brand, and then I recommend that they either go to a graphic designer or a copywriter or a website. So if I'm advising a client about their website, a new website or redevelopment, because I feel it's important to give you creative experts a brief, what would be the kind of top things that you would like to see on a brief, so that it makes it easy for you to understand what that client is looking for?
Is that directed to everyone, or who do you want to answer first?
I guess, why don't we do it in order for Ariella first, for example?
Hang on, Ariella, you're still muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can, yeah.
The most helpful thing I would like from a client is if they can just show me a few things that catches their eye, any sort of logo they like, and that's sort of where we go on from there. I love to get, the more specific the brief, the less hours I work on the project typically. But sometimes I do pull a rabbit out the bag, out of the hat, and I come up with something quite different. And then we sort of sometimes go on to a different route. But that, again, comes back to the client, and if they know exactly what they want, and if they know exactly what sort of audience they're trying to get at. So the most important thing I would always say, and always really love to have from any client, is do they know what sort of audience they're trying to attract? And that's really where I like to start.
And then again, would it be kind of, if they have some color choices or a kind of, you know, any type of descriptive words, would that also help?
Oh, definitely. Like I said, if they know their audience and they show me a few logos that they like, we sort of combine the two and we create that's why we call it a brand identity.
Great, thank you.
It'd be myself, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to ask easy questions here. This is it's a tough question because you've got to come at it from two different angles. The first one is the scope of the project, and the second one is you know, what we're actually going to write and how. Scope of the project, for instance, if somebody has a brand new website and they're looking for copy, it's all about establishing how many pages they're going to want, approximate copy volumes, and usually the way I go about it is in a fairly similar way to Ariella. In fact, I ask them to show me, because people are very visual anyway, I ask them to show me websites that they like the look of, they like the sound of, etc. And then we can develop the entire brief where we know X, Y, Z pages, approximate word counts, approximate structures. Maybe the web developers got involved and we know approximately where the copy is going to go on the page. So we've got a skeleton brief on the design, and then we can sort of give an idea on costs. The second one, of course, is the most important. Is once again very similar to Ariella. Is do the customers understand who they are and who they're talking to? And that's what I was mentioning earlier on in the brand discovery session, is actually getting into what makes them special as a company, what makes them stand out from their competition, the personality of their written brand. So if they understand that, then that's a brilliant start. And if they don't, I can help them get there.
Great, thanks.
Marc, anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I agree everything that's said is who's the target market and what are the, you know, the clients that they're trying to get from their website. But also, like for me, it's to really understand their business, to be able to showcase it effectively really understand their services so that we can open up the website for it to be able to have enough pages and structure for it to be able to rank for an SEO perspective. And then also it's understanding why someone wants a website. What is it that they want to gain from their website? Is it just a showcase for their business? Is it something that they want to generate them leads? So it's really just getting an understanding and a feel of people's business. And then aesthetically, I think what I would try to do is actually guide the client as to what would be the best way for the website to look and feel, because it's something that I'm working on day to day and doing day to day. And then for my own business, we're trying to follow a structured type of style of design nowadays that I would then guide the client more than the client guide me with design. Because often I have clients that will say, I really like this website, and I look at it and think, well, we can do something much, much better than that. So we would then showcase for them and show them. And then often also, as I said, one of my points was the flow of a website, call to actions and stuff. Most clients don't understand that type of thing. So it's more about me really guiding them about what they need and showcasing. And then once we've come up with design work, we then work with them backwards and forwards to really get the look and feel that they want.
Great.
So
Thanks.
while we've got you, Marc, one of the questions that we've had coming in is, I'm considering getting my website redone, but want to know your thoughts about the benefits of a new website versus the benefits of using social media to promote yourself. So Joe and I would probably have something to say on that ourselves, I'm sure. But what's your viewpoint on that, Marc?
So I think my viewpoint on that is that any professional business should probably have both. So most people, before they're going to do business with you, they will look at your website and research you and read your services, get an understanding of who you are, what you can deliver for them. As Richard said, what are the benefits that they can get from using you? So I think any professional business has to have a website nowadays. Then with regard to social media, I think it's very important to have both. And as Ariella was saying, that the brand needs to follow social media wise, advertising wise, everything needs to be in sync together. So the idea of most people's social media is that it then, again, with call to actions and flow, ends up directing people to the actual website, where they can then get much more information about you and really understand your services in a much more succinct way that you can't show on social media because it's much smaller. And then they then get in contact with you. So I think the website is key, social media enhanced, and they all work together within a flow and as a lead generation tool, really.
I think it's a really important point to make. I was on a business advice call yesterday, and someone said to me, my friend told me if I want to start this business, I must have a website. And I was questioning, what's the point in having a website if nobody knows that it's there? You know, I think sometimes people think that building a website is enough and that if you build it, they will come. But unfortunately, it's not that straightforward, is it?
You can have the best website in the world and no one will ever find it. So the idea is, one, you've got SEO. So I'm just seeing someone but is SEO worth doing? SEO is kind of essential. It can be quite costly. You need to have someone that is very good doing your SEO, because otherwise you'll be spending month after month and not get anywhere. But yeah, so a website needs to be, is the basis. And then your social media nowadays is part of SEO, because the more people are sharing your social media, the more links you're coming back from different places. So Google is now going through social media and taking that as votes of confidence as well. But having a website, as you said, isn't just build a website, put it online and you're finished, because you do need to do work with a website. It is essential. It's not just build, put it out, and then it's done. Absolutely. Unless it's a brochure and you're giving people a business card and they can go and look at your business card, you know, get your URL from there and go to a website. But to actually generate leads, it needs a lot of work, yeah.
Hannah, can I chip in?
Sorry, yes, of course, please do.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I think the most important thing for both of those questions, actually, about whether a website is important and social media and the importance of social media and SEO, the thing that needs to be remembered is timing. Not everything is instant here. It takes a little while to develop a website, but it's important to develop your audience as well. So whilst the website's being built, you can be out there developing your audience and, excuse my wife behind me, it's working from home. Whilst the website's being built, you can develop your audience through social media. And as far as SEO is concerned, it's a very slow process to gain a positive benefit from SEO, but it's actually a fairly quick process to do it badly and to have a negative impact on your business. So it's important from the very beginning to be mindful of SEO in everything you do from when you're building your website. It's important to build your audience through the social media. And for credibility, for most businesses, not necessarily all, for credibility, it's important to have a website.
Can I add one more point as well? Sorry.
Of course.
With regard to SEO and social media, it also really matters what your target market is. So I have worked on quite a few e-commerce sites that their whole target market is actually Instagram, and they've got a huge following on Instagram, and they do zero SEO because SEO in their niche, there's in women's fashion, is really, really difficult and really hard to get any value. So they don't do any SEO. She doesn't. When I spoke to this lady, she got a very successful business, but solely run from Instagram. So if you've got, but her Instagram feeds the website and people buy from the website. So really, depending on what your target market is, where your target market lives, you can then decide whether SEO is valuable for you. Or also, you can have a website and decide that SEO is going to take you 7-8 months and maybe, quicker. I can't answer that. It depends on what your niche is, but you might decide that actually you're going to go to do paid advertising instead. So rather than because paid advertising might give you immediate traffic, whereas SEO will take a longer period of time to actually start generating any traffic, or do both maybe. So yeah.
Okay, we've had an anonymous question in that's about rebranding. So looking to rebrand a long-standing estate agency, but wish to reform it going forward as a bespoke estate agency business, maintaining old relationships and attracting only the customer looking for a soft and personal touch. So they understand the need for a website, but it wouldn't be on the high street, and it would be more about they wouldn't be on the high street. So they want to have some tips and guidance on how to rebrand that. Ariella, any ideas? Okay. I hope I've asked the question right.
Sorry, I don't think I understood that correctly. Sorry.
Okay, so I think the question is how would you go from taking an old brand and rebranding something, but keeping your old customers, but finding a way of attracting new ones? I think that's what the question is.
Okay, so that is actually one of the top tips I spoke about in the very beginning. This is a question I come across very often with people with established businesses who are very afraid to rebrand because they don't want to lose their customers along the way. Now, what I've assured you that in the 21st century, it's actually very hard to lose a customer because we stay in touch with our customers in so many other mediums than we ever did 10 years ago. Got Instagram, Facebook, all those sorts of things. The most important thing about rebranding, which is actually quite vital, is that you really have to show your customers that your business is developing and your business is evolving and your business is growing and modernizing in the same pace that the world is. So if you like to say, if you're dealing with an antiques business, which may be the actually only example I'd say don't rebrand, you actually do need to evolve, and you do need to show your customers that I understand you, I understand the younger generation, I understand how the world is evolving. I would say if you don't, which is actually quite important now, don't go too far off base with changing a color scheme from orange to green or something crazy like that. But keeping with the color schemes, just changing it by a shade can completely evolve it. One example which I'd love to talk about today is BT. BT's logo has evolved, I would say 3-4 times over the past 50 years. Yet the most iconic logo of BT is the red and blue man. Although they've evolved and there's something, they're sort of looking like a globe today, we remember the iconic logo, but we appreciate that they evolved as they're in technology and their logo looks more modern. But we still do remember the artistic form, and it still sort of stays in our mind, something beautiful that they have created. So that's what I hope you've understood what I've tried to say today. But don't try to change your colors too much. Just by changing a shade can give it a completely different look. Changing the font ever so slightly can give it a different look. But yes, it's important to rebrand.
Richard?
I just wanted to add to that actually, that communication is so important. I've worked with lots of estate agents. I come from a property background myself, and I actually was an estate agent for 3 years, many years ago. So it's an industry I know and like very well. But it's about bringing your customers with you, about involving them in the process of a brand change. And as you're an estate agent, the vast majority of the people that you're actually going to be communicating with, your audience, are all local people. So letters, emails, through your social media and on your website. Don't just throw a new brand at somebody, draw them through the process, engage them in the process, and they will come along with you.
So Brit's saying on the chat that rebranding should be evolutionary, not revolutionary, which is what which is kind of what both of you are saying.
Yes.
Marc, is there anything about rebranding or new websites that that hasn't been covered?
No, not really, because businesses often change their website, so people are used to people changing their website. The only point I would make, that probably doesn't answer the question, but with regard to Joe's question before about what do you want to know before you start a job with someone, well, an interesting thing with regard to estate agents is you could put a brochure site out that showcases their work, or possibly they might want the website to connect from their internal database so that they keep and manage all their properties themselves in-house on a particular software, and the website needs to connect to that software, and then maybe they want to direct from a website to Rightmove or to Zoopla. So these are kind of the things that you would understand in taking a brief from someone, what actually functions that they need for the website, which is something that you would have to understand obviously before doing a website.
Thank you. Anybody have any more questions? Anything that they wanted covered today that maybe wasn't covered in the top tips, anything like that?
Can I jump in?
Yes, of course.
I just want to go back to that question about is it important to have a website or not? Now, this is Marc's area, but it's something that I do come across sometimes, because all these areas sort of overlap. Sometimes a website is simply about having an address online, and that's sometimes all you need, just to tell someone, I have an address online, because everything is not physical today. We don't really go to shops today. So an address, as opposed to a physical address, has become an online address, which is sometimes all someone wants to see in terms of trusting a person. And then you can go ahead investing your time, effort, and money in the social media channel. But sometimes that website, which what I'm saying is, it's just about having that place where someone can trust you, because you know there's an address online.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot in business meetings, actually, that often a website is just there to validate you. Yeah. So, and even when we are allowed out of the house and to do normal things, which we're not at the moment, sometimes you can meet someone, you can shake their hand. Obviously you wouldn't now, because goodness knows what would happen to you, but you still don't believe that they're real. So often having a website or having a presence online helps to validate what you've heard or what you've seen. So
it's a perception generation tool. It allows you to convey the message, the perception that you want your customers to think of you as, and it's really important. And actually, I noticed that there was another message that came through from somebody. I only sort of read part of it about whether or not people should classify themselves as we or I
was about to
on their
ask you
website.
that, yeah.
And I think that's related as well. When you're developing a perception through the copy on your website or through the design on your website, you need to be careful to be honest, but also to manage the expectations of your audience. If you're a one-man band, you have to decide whether or not you're going to define yourself as that. And by doing so, the perception you're putting out there is you're small. The perception you could put out there is you're small, it's personal of your service, you always get to see the same person. There's lots of benefits to that. But if you're, say, in the finance sector, being a one-man band isn't exactly going to win you credibility, win you trust. So there are times when a one-man band may say we, and may refer to themselves as ambiguously as being larger than they are. Now, you have to be very, very careful how you stretch that truth, because you can go too far very easily. And if you go too far, you lose credibility and you lose business at that point. So it's about finding the right balance. And that balance is determined by the perception you want your customers to have and your ability to live up to that perception when they speak to you or when they meet you.
I think I've had plenty of business meetings where I've been met with one person and they continually refer to themselves as we. And then I ask the question, who is the we? And they say, no, it's just me. And they've been so busy trying to promote themselves as an organization rather than as an individual, they've almost lost the ability to refer to themselves as I. So it can get quite confusing when you're trying to give them advice about who can do what when it turns out there's just one person.
And that's why it's so important to be able to live up to that perception you created. Yeah, absolutely.
Joe, did you want to add something?
Yeah, no. I haven't got anything to add to this, but I've got another question actually.
Okay, I've also got another one on the chat.
Okay, so we'll take the chat first.
Okay. So the question on the chat was, what's the panel's thoughts about changing a name? Is it better to stick with a bad but known name, or change to a better unknown name? Shall we go on, Ariella?
I've had this question before. I've had this question before with a logo that was written in capital letters, which I for so many reasons, I hate capital letters. I find it scary. I think it sounds like you're shouting at people and it's something you don't want to do. You just automatically run away when you feel like someone is shouting. And no one understood what the abbreviation was. But again, a name is different to rebranding. A name, what someone is what people hear. So if you change the look of something, but you can read the same thing, and it looks slightly different, you can still associate with the old business and tell that they've rebranded. If you change the name, that can be very catastrophic. So So for that, I would definitely say it's about being evolutionary and not changing something. I would say adding to it. And so, for instance, if you're stuck with a name that really sucks, you can just add to the end "and co." And it sounds different, it sounds like we've grown, that adding to the name, but definitely changing the name would require a lot of research, and changing the name would be even talking about changing your market share completely. I would definitely say add to the name, but I would stay clear of changing a name.
Unless, although I often think that if you are trading under your own name and your own name doesn't necessarily mean anything. So if I were to trade under Joanna Sadie, it doesn't tell people what you do as a business. So it is definitely worth considering, if you haven't started a business yet and you're thinking of starting a business, worth finding a name that isn't just your own name. It's worth kind of, you know, picking a name that explains what the business or the service is.
Well, of course, it depends on what stage of business you're in.
Exactly.
How many years of business you are in. At the end, but I always say every client is a diamond. Even if you're serving 2 clients, they're still diamonds. They may go on to be the next Jeff Bezos. You never really know who you're working with. Every client is a diamond. So I would treat them with respect, and I would, you know, if I've gone and changed my name, it's literally like you're telling them, well, 5 years ago I was just trading. I did it because I needed some cash, but now I'm a professional. Now I'm different. My name is Sandra. Don't call me Joanna anymore. So it's a big one. So the things to consider is what stage of business you're in. But regardless of that, my view is I would add to the name. So Joanna Trading, you know, but I wouldn't change the name. It's a big one.
We changed our name about 5 years ago, I think. And every time you think you've won the battle and everyone still knows us as Work Avenue, we get that phone call going, hi, is this the number for, I'm not even going to tell you the old name in case you've all forgotten it. But it's a big thing to get over. It takes, if you're working in an organization and you're used to operating under one name, it is then quite difficult to answer the phone with the new name, or to introduce yourself with the new name. But I mean, I can say that our old name was so awful that our new name is definitely an improvement, and it was worth the hassle. I don't know if Debbie would agree, our CEO, but
even though it's in caps.
Even though it's in caps.
Sorry, Ariella.
But we are shouting at people. We're shouting to say we're here to help. So we're happy to be shouting at people. Richard, Mark, did you have anything to add on the renaming conversation?
No, not really. It's very. I feel very similar to you guys. It's far easier to change a visual brand than to change the full name of the company. I think there's sometimes when the change can actually be not just adding to it, but also taking away from it. You know, my business originally was called Scribbles Writing Services because I did exactly what Joanna said to do, which was, when you start off, tell people what you do in the name of your business, because we can't all be Google or Nike or Orange and have some name that doesn't actually mean anything to what we do. But you know, there's only so often you can actually give out your website address of www.scribbles-writing-services.co.uk before you get bored of it and you want to change. So I just shortened it to Scribbles Media, or just Scribbles sometimes. So sometimes paring it back can also work whilst retaining the heart of what it is you created.
Thank you. Mark, anything?
The only thing I would say is that online it's very easy. If you have a specific domain name already and you have changed your name and you move to another domain name, you can just do a permanent redirect, and any traffic that would still go to your old domain would just be forwarded to your new domain. So online it's a very simple and easy thing to be able to do if someone is considering that.
Joe, what was your question?
So not wanting to do Ariella or Marc out of business, because I would always prefer that a client uses a professional to develop a website or to develop a logo. But sometimes when people literally have no money and they say to me, I don't have any money to pay, you know, there are obviously, especially for websites, there are places that you can go, you know, to make your own. If let's say it's just a brochure, you know, not if it's something more complicated, but if they just wanted a 5-page brochure, or they wanted a really simple logo. So there are sites that create your own logo for free, and obviously you can do your own websites. Any thoughts on that? Not obviously wanting to do you out of business, but any thoughts on those?
There's no denying there is no denying, it's all over the place, and I get it very often. And people say, "Oh, why should I pay you? I can get it on Fiverr," and I get that often. But what I'd like to say is, how long do you want to be in business for? What are you trying to say about your business? These things are an investment, and you can get it for cheap online. It's like buying a pair of jeans from Costco, or buying a pair of jeans. How long do you want to stay in business for? How long do you want to wear those pair of jeans? In regards to making a website, I get those questions myself, and I always tell them, if you go to a professional website builder, it's going back to what Marc said at the very beginning. If you go to any Tom, Dick and Harry to build a website, you're not going to be able to deal with that website very often. You're not going to be able to wear those jeans for very often. Whereas if you make the investment in the beginning, you can actually use the website, work on that website from the back end, and that investment will last you for a couple of years.
Marc, what are your thoughts on, Wix or Squarespace, for example?
Yeah. So, and there's some new ones coming out regularly as well. But what I would say is, if you actually haven't got any budget whatsoever and you want a web presence, then I guess you've got no choice. You can go to Wix and create something for free and maybe get your business up and running. And then maybe if you then, as business progresses, you can get a website. The only thing is that a lot of people start doing it and get stuck. There are also themes that you can buy in WordPress that you can buy for like $75, I think, without VAT. And you can, if you like the theme and you get all the images and all that kind of stuff, you can just put that together for yourself as a very cheap option. And if you haven't got the money, then I guess, and you need a presence, then you have to do that. Yeah, I think, it's one of those things. If you haven't got the money, you've got no choice. It's not the best thing, but if that's what you need, then you have to do it. And that's just the way it is. Some people do start with an idea without a budget, and they need to do something, and then there is a place for it, which is why I guess Wix is quite successful. And then some people don't have the money to pay for a bespoke website, and then I agree that is a place for them. Yeah.
Joanna, you didn't mention copywriting, but it does exist out there. There are services out there that will write copy for you, or for next to nothing.
Right.
And it does exist, and people do mention it to me sometimes when they come to me. I think the answer for all three of our businesses, all three of our sectors, is whether or not you as the client consider us a cost or an investment. I was asked this question. I'm a member of a networking group, network marketing group, and I was told recently it was quite expensive. And I said, well, it depends. I might have, before joining, thought of it as expensive, but now I look at it at how much business it's getting me. It doesn't matter really, because it's not about how much it costs, it's about how much it earns you. And it's the same with your business. It's, if you have some trusted experts that you can afford, then using them as an investment in ensuring that your business makes you more money in the end.
That's a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
Should have gone to that one first.
Yeah.
Look, we're coming close to the end of our hour now, so I just wanted to say thank you so much to Ariella, to Richard, and to Marc. I've learned a lot. I'm an accountant, so creative stuff scares the living daylights out of me. And actually it hasn't been too scary at all. So thank you so much for sharing. For anyone who's on, if you do want to get in contact with Ariella, Richard, or Marc, the email that you were sent telling you about today's webinar, there are links to their LinkedIn or their websites on there, or you can just drop me an email. I'll write it on here so you've got it. But you can just drop me an email and I can put you in touch with them. I'm sure they would be happy to hear from you. And just remember that if you are thinking about starting up or rebranding and you're not quite ready to go and speak to one of our creative experts yet, you can speak to Joanna and I. We're here. The business advice service that we offer is totally free, but of very high value if it's not high cost. And we're always happy to help. Marc, Ariella, Richard, thank you so much. It's been really, really useful. And thank you everyone for joining us. And do remember to sign up for our events. We've got Startup Central. You should have all received an email about that yesterday, where we have Google. We're doing a virtual Startup Central. We've got Google's Digital Garage, and they're talking about digital media strategy. And we've got speakers about mindset, about e-commerce. Joe, help me out, I've forgotten the other ones. One about
Fix Our Social. Yeah. So we've got social media, also website, kind of digital product development, and a whole session on from somebody on Amazon, how to be effective on Amazon. So it's going, and then our keynote is Josh Kettle from Shake-tastic. Yeah, we've got a really fantastic
and the beauty of it being virtual is you can sit in your pajamas from your sofa and join us and learn things to grow your business. So guys, thank you so much. Thanks again to all of our speakers, and we hope to see you all soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks to me, guys.
Thank you.
Lovely.